All right, we're live. Sorry for the delay. Just talking Legend of the Mist, but shh, don't
Yeah,
tell
Cam
anyone.
was shooting down my hopes and dreams. Sigh.
But welcome to everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, The Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello.
And today we are gonna be talking about the different intricacies and differences between a dungeon crawl and kind of like the classic adventure, even though classic adventure is kind of an interesting term here, because I understand and know that a lot of the original like D&D stuff was mostly like centered around the idea of the dungeon crawl, but when you think about it, it was kind of modeled and the idea was based off of Lord of the Rings, which is an adventure. And there were also a lot of early D&D based adventures that were just that. They were adventures. They weren't like just going into dungeons and getting loot. So there's been this interesting divergence. We'll talk a little bit about OSR. But first, while we're waiting for people to kind of hop into the stream here, a little bit of small talk. So Alex, what have you been up to?
Honestly, now I'm just thinking, I'm like, damn, like, we got a bunch of dungeon crawl, but Lord of the Rings had maybe 2 dungeons tops. Like, if you
Yeah.
had to think of the dungeons, it is Moria and the fucking crypt in the third movie. Yeah, third. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I wouldn't even count the other one, the second part, as a dungeon. That kind of was just like a walk-in social encounter.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Uh,
really isn't.
that's crazy. Uh, no, I just today I uploaded a video. I got a funnel video on steampunk wizards. Is honestly, it's pretty sick. It was way cooler than I expected. Uh, and it's been fun. It's the thing I'm working on when it comes to mage in particular. Is I'm really trying to narrow in to people. Like, listen, it's mage the ascension. What's the first thing you think of? Wands and tomes and casting spells. When the setting is too weird for that, and it's like, no, man, no. It is, how does your philosophy have you changing the world and altering reality? Because I had a person who it was like, I don't understand how you could have steampunk wizards. Like, that's not magic, that's tech. It's like, yeah, because tech is magic, because it's a way to alter the universe. And it's a fun bit, because I've been analyzing more things the more I learn about mage. And it's really just like, if you want to tell a cool story, that is just using like extra magical or even like just supernatural abilities, mage is a really good system to actually do it. Like, more and more I'm surprised by.
Yeah.
If you wanted to tell a story in the Dresden Files, like, mage is probably the best one to do it. Not even just because, oh yeah, Harry Dresden is obviously like all this shit is like Order of Hermes mage, because he's just doing hermetic magic. But there's a character, I don't know if you've gotten this far with meeting Michael.
No, not yet.
He's in book 3, and Michael is so sick, but his entire thing is he's a paladin, and the only like magical ability he has is that God will do miracles for the faithful, help you in need, and guide you in a direction where you're possibly needed. And all of that is exactly the philosophy of the Celestial Chorus mage tradition. Because they all believe it's not magic, they believe that it is divine miracles and like God reaching down to help you. And like,
sorry, speaking on Harry Dresden, I just want to make mention. Isn't it weird? We just had that weird psycho guy cosplaying Harry Dresden.
Yeah, like I learned more into it because I saw the just Harry Dresden. I'm like, oh no, but yeah, like it really seems like he might have been a big Dresden fan, but he was going through like a psychotic break. Because I know there was a big bit of like the people were saying, oh yeah, he was talking to someone on Discord, and he was like he was getting catfish. It was like, no, apparently more what's going on is he thought like his neighbor kidnapped a little girl, and he was trying to be like a hero kind of shit. Is more what it seemed, but he was just going through like a horrible mental break. But that ring video is insane.
It is, and all of it. Also, I don't actually think he lived in that area.
Like, only bit was because he was talking about like he kept hearing screams from the house, and like that could be he didn't live in the area or he just was nearby. But
But he did call the
there's a
guy
lot.
Victor after Victor Sells from the second book. So
Yeah, it is. I think that's probably there's some bleed over that happened, but it's crazy that Harry Dresden is that's the way he gets some a little bit more notoriety in pop culture.
yeah, I I would think it would need to be rewritten a bit, but I do think the Dresden Files could do really well nowadays. I actually like the old TV series that was out for like a season.
I've heard it is both fun, but also like there's a lot of weird changes. So the two things I've heard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I
yeah,
know
because it wasn't really TV friendly when, the first couple books.
there is a bit that's not super TV friendly, but like now it is. Honestly, like you get away with that shit on HBO, or like
I mean,
any
that's fair.
network like that. But back then, also apparently, actually, I was reading some development of it because I was trying to determine if I watch it. But the consensus for it is one, the guy who plays Harry does a really good job. Like,
Yeah.
they found Harry Dresden. And the other thing I heard was it was the victim of studio meddling is like what happened, because apparently it was a sci-fi show during an era where the main guy and ahead of sci-fi didn't like science fiction or fantasy.
Yeah.
And so because of that, a lot of the weirdness and like some supernatural elements or just plot changes kind of got shifted around, and like some books got speed ran in the span of an episode. That's what I've read. I've not seen it myself, so I cannot attest. But I've heard it is like a fun what if kind of viewing for a lot of hardcore fans.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first introduction to the Dresden Files at all. I never read the books. So I thought it was cool. I love the noir wizard take.
It's fun, and like I think genuinely there is such a shoot up of like book 3 of like quality. I still need to finish it. It's just honestly the thing that's holding me back more is that the first 5 books on Audible are just some horrendous quality. Like it is egregious lip smacking and mouth noises because like the editing is not very good.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing that holds me back the most. When like I like the style of story. I like a story where it is a character slowly becoming like I like a big character arc, but I like a character arc where the character kind of starts at like rock bottom of Harry's kind of a pathetic loser piece of shit, and he's like slowly becoming cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a comment I had from my 2 buddies at work who like got me into reading it. I was like, I kind of fuck with the fact that Harry is like a little loser. He's just trying to sound cool and fails. He's like pissing himself constantly, and they're like, yeah, eventually, like as the series goes on, he earns it and he starts actually being cool. It's like, okay, sick. I like that. That's an actual character arc.
Yeah. I think though it's hard because it makes getting into the series an abrasive process. Like it's just gonna rub you the wrong way.
A bit. I at least I say it from the perspective of I enjoy following a story where it's like a piece of shit character study. I've always fucked with it. But like yeah, I know that is a thing some people do say is like you push through the first couple books, but like once you get to 3 onward, that's when like the story, the larger plot starts kicking off. That's when a lot of the characterization's a lot stronger because Harry is very cool in book 3. He has his like dorky moments, which are still fun. I gotta shout out. He shows up to a vampire masquerade dressed as Dracula.
That is fun.
Yeah, fun. He does that specifically because he thinks it'll offend them, and it is funny. But then there's other parts where he's like in a situation and he's like breaking down because he's like, he's just full breaking down of like, I can't do anything. I'm fucking useless. And it's like, you know what? Fair. That's super fair, Harry. Like this situation sucks, man. It becomes like there's a lot of those moments where it's like, I think this is super justifiable for a lot of his behavior. And It only goes up from there because I think book 4 or 5 is what one of my coworkers was saying was like his favorite, and like it literally life changing quality. And in return, I got one of them to read through Stormlight Archive.
Oh, nice.
He's on Oathbringer.
What a
and he's saying
trade.
it fucking rules.
What a fucking trade, though.
I told him it was like he only listens to books at work, and so he needed books. And he's on Oathbringer, and he's already telling me, dude, this book is fucking peak.
Oathbringer is still, to this day, of everything I've read so far, my favorite book.
I love Oathbringer. It is. I'd have to go through, because granted, I haven't like read recreationally since I was in like middle school. But like of books I have read, and of series, it is definitely one of my favorites. The only bit that tops Stormlight for me is part 2, Era 2 Mistborn, because it just appeals to my aesthetics way too much. And like my Cosmere fanboyism of just I like book 4 of Era 2 Mistborn. I think that book is good. I think it is a good send off for Era 2, and I like the Cosmere connections it does.
Yeah, I don't know. So far, I mean, the Cradle series has been my favorite series, I think, so far. I think the world, the setting, and just how well, like, the audio book performance is just stellar. Like,
that's always good.
It's just really, really good. And like, I really like the setting and everything. My little bit of small talk is I just started Dungeon Crawler Carl.
I need to read that. I've heard nothing but good things, especially about the audiobook. And It is one of the rare few occasions my dad has recommended me something that is actually kind of good. No shade to him, but we just have very different taste.
It's interesting. I think you'll like it because the main character, Carl, is your kind of guy. He's a bit of a man failure, but like also he's just the kind of guy who's just like, all right, fucking shit sucks, but I'm gonna do it because we gotta.
I respect it. I respect the mentality of like, man, sometimes you just kind of lock it in, but fuck this.
Because like,
respect it.
Because like he starts off going into the dungeon in nothing but like a leather jacket, his underwear, and some 2 small pink Crocs.
Based.
For reasons. And also, I think it's a joke. I don't know because I haven't seen it, but all the art I see of Carl, he's always in his underwear. So I think he's just going through the dungeon and just by some twist of fate can never find pants.
That would be a really funny bit.
It's a wacky series, and it's an interesting take because it is not a D&D isekai type deal. It is more of a D&D death game on a galactic scale.
I have apparently because I've only ever found this in like it's lit RPG is the genre.
Yeah, literature RPG is what it stands for.
Which like I've never read a lit RPG. I've never read it. Apparently it is like
you have.
Have I?
So a lit RPG is literally anything that has some kind of gamey mechanics, some kind of like way a character can improve themselves in some way. Because Stormlight can kind of be a little bit on the lit RPG side, depending. Because there's weird powers and abilities. It's not about like progression, and that's kind of like what defines lit RPG is do the characters do things and get power-ups and do all that kind of stuff.
Because at least my thought looking into a lot of the spaces where people talk about lit RPGs is that it seemed like a lot of the genre was having RPG elements, kind of like in that way. I didn't know if it meant like, oh yeah, there's like RPG mechanics in here, or it's very gamey. Like, I don't know. I'm talking from I say it from a perspective of someone who's like, I've seen the two words together of Dungeon Crawler Carl and lit RPG.
Yes, because it is a lit RPG, because it literally is a
Bro's in like a death game dungeon. Like
Yeah, he's in a
that's
death game
very RPG.
D&D scenario. But yeah, so lit RPGs are somewhat classified as any kind of fantasy or sci-fi setting with game-like mechanics. And so sometimes it's we're in a game. Other times it's like you need to get stronger, and then you hit like the next tier, and then you can learn like new spells and new abilities and stuff like that. A good example is like Bastion. So Bastion is about like this culture that is raised on a hell world called Hell, and it's kind of cultivatory. You have to cultivate yourself and get to the next level and everything like that. And when you do, you get a new form or new power. And when you do that, you have to go through like this memory / dream thing. And your choice in that determines like how your power is expressed in this life. And all the characters reincarnate after death after some time or another. So there's a lot of stuff behind it. It's very interesting. But yeah, lit RPG is a spectrum, but it's mostly just like Dungeon Crawler Carl is like the best example of like a true lit RPG, because it is technically it's a sci-fi RPG kind of game.
I know that's really what the author does, because there's another book that he has that's not in the universe, but my dad was talking about on our big trip, where it is like it seems like a lot of his stories are very death gamey, sci-fi, capitalism run wild kind of
Yep.
tales. Because it's a big. I know he has another story that's about like farmers on like a different planet, a very Mars-like planet. But a large part of it is tech has advanced to a point where a lot of work is done remotely. So like you don't go out and farm, you pilot a drone that like plows the field for you. But you're piloting it, which is funny because that's a literal thing that's going on in China right now. Is there are teens who like, or at least like college kids who pilot remote operated like diggers and stuff.
Yeah, which is a very interesting like shift. Imagine all work is from home. You just pilot robots in other places to do your job.
One of my favorite games of all time is Power Wash Simulator. I would eat that shit up. I would love a job like that. You
Right.
telling me I can like I love it's a weird genre that I have a big kick for. I love the you are working a normal job video games. I think they're really fun because it's just so mindless and great. Power Wash is my favorite. If I was controlling a power washing drone, I'd be, I think, happy and set for life.
Yeah.
I think all my issues would fade away.
All right, but getting on to the subject now, since we're about 30 minutes in, give or take. The dungeon crawl versus the classic adventure. So one of the things that made me think about this is first, I was telling my wife the other day, it's either I stumbled upon or stubbed my toe upon this channel. It's something tavern. I don't necessarily want to put them on blast full on here, but it's this kind of channel of this guy who really thinks that TTRPGs were perfected in the 80s. And he uses modern RPGs as a slur, it feels like.
Man, it is like, listen, you can have that feeling. It's a thought that I came across relatively recently because in the same bracket there was a Twitter meme that was getting popular of some guy making like a as mean as possible performative video, like 9 video games that this person loves.
Right.
And it's like it's making fun of a lot of those people who just they have the performative opinions, but the bit that gets me with that kind of thing is all of the games, all of the whatever are like 15 to 20 years old. And what gets me with that is I cannot stand a lot of the talk where it's like you've limited yourself. It is impossible unless it is something you are doing that like nothing good has come out since you were a kid.
Right.
Like that cannot be the case. You are limiting yourself. You are pretending there are things that like you're pretending things haven't come out that appeal to your taste. Oh, like you're just lying. Like I do not believe you if you say like no good video game or no good tabletop game has come out in 20 years. Or I guess 40 years at this point, actually.
Yeah.
Like that is dumb.
It is. I was telling my wife the same thing. It's like it's crazy to think that there's people who loved those old games who went on to make their own things and try to innovate and make things better. One of the, like, I watched 2 videos so far, mostly just out of morbid curiosity than anything. I like seeing other people's point of views. The first video was how to not roll dice while playing the game by using items in your inventory. And he talked about the 10-foot pole, you know, going through a dungeon and tapping all the dungeon tiles so you don't trigger a trap. Or door spikes was another one that I was more a little surprised of, because I probably had heard about it before, but I just never really thought about it. But the whole idea is you pound some spikes like into the frame or into the floor so that the door can't be opened effectively.
Oh, I'll say I have not seen that in like a tabletop like item compendium like I have the 10-foot pole, but that is a cool idea.
And then the whole like there's an invisible enemy, hit them with a bag of flour kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it sounds like when he talks about all these things that it was stuff that was done back in the day that everyone thought was really cool or really interesting, and they thought was very, very like fun. And so like you hear these guys talking about it, and it's just like, all right, yeah, I never go into a dungeon without my 10-foot pole and everything like that. And it's funny to me because while I'm definitely for getting into the scene, actually role playing and not just focusing on the stats, trying to actually interact with the environment, I think that's really cool. Everything he gave as an example is one, wouldn't it be really silly if all these dungeons that were made to keep people out were easily beaten by someone with a 10-foot pole kind of deal.
Yeah.
And the premise that all traps are pressure plate traps, and also that door spikes. Yeah, sure. I imagine door spikes could stop someone for a few minutes, but if it's a monster or something, they're gonna just break the door down.
Yeah, like I like you definitely provide a benefit for like thinking out of the box and shit. But if your entire thing is how can I sidestep, haha, I beat you, dungeon master, because like I think it's the thing of if you're going to engage in the idea of we're implementing this level of like realism. Like I could maybe fix a bunch of these trap issues by having a big 10-foot pole. It's like, yeah, 100%. But then, like you said, if we're gonna take that into account of like what is the reality here, then yeah, why in the hell would they design all these puzzles so easily beatable?
Right.
In the same joking, it's like dungeons and traps and all that are very gamey, like inherently. It's why everyone makes fun of the like. There's the common joke of Resident Evil Umbrella Corp employee trying to go to the bathroom with his 5 key cards and like unicorn head. There's an element that's just very gamey. But the bit that gets me is like talking about it like you can't do that in a modern RPG.
Right, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is whenever he talks about the modern RPG, again, he kind of uses it like a slur the whole time. He's just like, oh yeah, well, you just go and you roll your stats, you know. When he said in that video specifically, he said when you tell the player, you know, the player's like, oh, can I use this pole? And like, okay, cool, go ahead and roll a detect traps or whatever perception with either. He doesn't even say like with a +1. He just implies that you come up with a good idea. The GM doesn't reward you, just tells you to roll instead, and he's like, he teaches you that thinking outside the box isn't helpful, and the only thing that matters are the stats on your character sheet. Which most GMs would give some kind of bonus if a player comes up with a good idea, either a straight up modifier or advantage or disadvantage if we're talking about D&D.
My first thought is like reducing the difficulty. Like
that can also be a thing, sure.
Like that's my thought, because that's how I roll with things a lot more, because I don't like the idea of pure advantage, disadvantage, but like it's just as hard, because that doesn't make sense for me. It's like if I in a game determine, oh, that's a really good idea, then I look at it and I'm like, well, that turns like a 15 DC to maybe a 10, because you have found a way to do it. There's still a chance of failure, but it's way lower because you've come up with a nice problem. Or like if something fucks up and they have like, oh, I'm using a 10-foot pole, oh, you like slip up and you trigger the trap, well, you're not in range of the trap because obviously you're like 9 feet back.
Yeah,
like those are the rewards you're getting, instead of a like, oh, you roll an advantage, oh, you rolled a 2 and a 3, it sucks, bro. Sucks for your cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the problem with the D20, and it's a system. Like, one of the advantages of games like Legend in the Mist is a +1 is actually a lot more substantial, and so getting an additional +1 in any check can make you a lot closer to succeeding. Plus, there's success with consequence, which is just like this bigger range where you fail less, but you can still succeed and still have some kind of trade back for it. So I like the idea of trading for successes versus just straight success, straight failure.
Yeah, I like there being the levels between. It's honestly like, also when I'm thinking about that take, that idea of it is like, I'm curious how many actual campaigns this person ran back then, ran or played in, because it sounds more like I don't see a person even in like the 80s and such. Like, you'd still have to do your roll for stat and roll for thing. That's still a mechanic of the game. Like, unless that was a mechanic of early D&D, like advanced D&D, that you use an item, it makes it so you don't have to roll anymore. Well, it's just the table he's at.
So the thing is back in the old day, it was a lot more of the Wild West, right? People were just kind of like doing whatever because there wasn't really much of a culture around it yet. And I was going to kind of bring up the same point in a different way, but when you hear OSR people talk about these games back in the day, this seems like a very common experience, right? Using the 10-foot pole, using the door spikes, using a lot of items. Like, there's a lot of items that we see nowadays that we just don't really consider, like soap or whatever. But back in the day, the whole thing was about like role playing, how you would solve these solutions with these tools. And it was a lot more, ironically enough, a lot more on the rules like kind of end of things, because it was just, if you rolled when a roll was called for, but if you solved the solution without doing anything particular, then you would just do it. But the funny thing is in the video, he talks about like stats. Like, stats are a terrible thing for some reason. But ironically, the whole like thinking outside the box, being in the scene and actually trying to participate in the dungeon and all this kind of stuff is not more narrative or not more immersive, because the thing is, these people play these games and know their tricks and do them every time with every character. And so rather than, sure, like the gameplay mechanics of it, their character is just an avatar for them to play through.
I mean, that's also the bit with these types of games that's talked about, is like how it's a revolving door of characters. Is your character dies, oh no, well, here's my next character. He's one letter off from the other guy. They're like cousins. Like, that's such a common thing I have heard.
Right.
Of you're not playing the character, you're playing the avatar, because it's just, if this character dies, there's no consequence to it. You're just going to show up with a character that does the same thing.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's not, you're just moving the gamey part to a different aspect of the game, rather than, it's the kind of people who don't think about whom their character is, what their character knows, and everything, like using the stats on the other spectrum, the intelligence stats. These are the people who are like, no, they're like my puppet, my avatar, who in this game world, and doing this thing. And like, I don't like game mechanics because, if I figure out a problem in the real world without needing to use strength to lift an object, then why would I need to make a strength check? And it's like, yes, but the reason why we have checks for detecting traps and everything like this is because what your character knows is different than what you know. And stats represent that division between you and them. So,
yeah.
It's frustrating for some people to think that their character wouldn't know a thing that they know when they can come up with a solution, but that the GM says, no, that doesn't work because your character is not smart enough.
I think that is all actually like, it's that example that I agree with their complaint, because I think that's kind of shitty if a GM does that because there's the levels of where it's good. There's the level where it's like, oh, I came up with a fun idea and like a fun solution, I got this. You can role play that out and have it fun, but if your GM was just like, no, your character's a stupid barbarian, you actually don't do or say that. Or if it's like hey, you actually don't know the monster stats because you're a character that's first encountering this beholder. You like, that is the one where like I always will side with GM. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be metagaming like that, because it is more fun. It's more fun to be like, man, I know the answer to this, my character doesn't. Or it leads to a very fun character moment of like, because it always happens in media, you have the dumbass who like for like 5 seconds suddenly got a solid hold of the brain cell and like said something really smart.
Yeah.
That's always like a funny moment.
Yeah, for sure. But like, the point I was more making is they're ignoring one aspect of the whole roleplay immersive world elements for, because they don't like mechanics around finding traps or whatever, but they're ignoring the other half, which is like, yeah, but also like what your character knows and what it represents. It's just the hypocrisy behind it.
Yeah, I completely agree with the point you're making. Like, it's the only line I make is the because I hear the same point, the same thing of that level of metagaming, and some of it, like, my interpretation of how a lot of grognards talk is, I hear it and I kind of, all I think of is like, man, I really hope your GM was actually chill back then, because some of the things I've heard about like older campaign styles, like, if you're having fun, sick, but a lot of these things you guys all talk about, the fun of the game, sounds like a Pavlovian response to like being hit over the head repeatedly with the newspaper. Like, that's what that sounds like more of. The road is the door spikes like literally a clever idea, or is it because your GM constantly punish you for not using it?
Yeah.
Like, is that more of the thing that's going on here? Which I can't attest to, because I didn't play in those games back then. And honestly, what gets me a lot of the time is I would prefer if a lot of like that sphere, because not everyone who likes old games, like, there are very cool old gamer, old grognards, y'all are fine. I just wish people would be honest about it. Just be honest about like that, like, I just don't vibe with new design elements and like how these games operate. I still run it like this. That's a totally fine opinion.
Yeah.
Having the then take of everything that is past me being 15 years old is dog shit, actually, because I haven't felt the same way I do. I don't know, man. It just sounds like you're sad you're not a kid anymore.
I mean, yeah. Well, I'm always blown away by the mentality of, I had a really good time playing this game, and so now every experience after that is just chasing that same high, Like, you had that one really good experience, and then you just try other games, and they just don't feel the same as they did back then, so they can't be good, Yeah.
Loop for video games too, and it's really annoying because
yeah,
it's just like, when you actually break down what people are saying, a lot of it is just like, I get it, man. Our lives in the world is just really stressful, and you just want to have that feeling of like not having responsibilities and having fun with your friends. Like, I get it, but you can't. But you should be honest that that's your point, and not that actually nothing good has come out because of low woke, which is what I hear most of the time. I
Yeah,
don't like 5e, but I muted somebody in my comments because they were going on a rant about 5th edition D&D and how it's actually bad because they prioritize politics, not the game.
right,
And it's
yeah.
like, I don't think the actual game rules, like I can't open up the rule book and get a political opinion. I just get shit rules. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of just a thing. There's just a lot of people who tap into their animal brain a little bit more and just have these things. It's like Critical Role hate. Like, I guarantee you make a video that's shitting on Critical Role for whatever reason, it's going to get good views because there's just a big part of the community who just hates Critical Role.
It's really annoying. As I mean, I wouldn't say I hate Critical Role. I just don't like their genre. But it's like, yeah, I don't. And then seeing all like the weird hatred of they're playing the game wrong. Just always stupid.
Well, I mean, it's not even that. It's like Daggerheart. You shit on Daggerheart, you're gonna get a lot of views. They're Candela Obscura. You shit on that game, and I was in kind of in the middle of a bit of a controversy around that, then you're gonna get a lot of views, or you're gonna get a lot of people jumping into your video being like, "The game's actually terrible," you know. And it's just like
it's actually terrible,
fine.
and then they cite things that rules like games have done for years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if your biggest complaints about Candela Obscura is that you feel like there's other games that do it better, that's fine. But like, that's just because you feel like there's a better game out there doesn't make it necessarily true, nor should a game not exist because there's a better version of it out there somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh man, I can't make a game because this game now exists. Damn. Like, what a weird mindset.
It's a really annoying mind. Honestly, indie games get it a lot of just like there's a big joke of we only have a couple types of indie games that exist nowadays. When yeah, man, like a developer is gonna get inspired by a thing they like and try to make their own entry in a thing they like.
Yeah.
Buy it if you like it. Like, it doesn't actually. A new game coming out on Steam does not affect you to care this much.
Right.
In
Exactly.
the same way of like a new tabletop game should not affect you this much to freak out about it.
And it normally wouldn't, because there's bad tabletop games that come out all the time. The difference is this one has Critical Role behind it, and that's why people shit on it, and that's why it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, and I wouldn't normally bring this kind of conversation up, but I find it funny, and it made me think about the idea of different styles of game, because that's been a thing I've been thinking about a lot since discovering Legend in the Mist, which is in many ways operating on a different game style than other TTRPGs. And when it comes to this channel or whatever, it's a lot of his videos are, I'm going to teach you how to play RPGs better. I'm going to teach you to be a better RPG player. And he does so by teaching you how they did it back in the 80s. You know, like, oh man, I guess TTRPGs just haven't improved, and we don't have a bigger understanding. And not only that, but also his whole complaints about like not using items or whatever. All his points were about dungeon crawl based mechanics, getting through a dungeon. When the game is about getting through a dungeon, when in actuality, Dungeons and Dragons, despite dungeon being in the name, is not a dungeon crawl. It's an adventure game that you can crawl through dungeons in, but that's kind of not the biggest point.
A very popular module is a dungeon crawl, but that's more of the case of, yeah, sure, there's you can play dungeon crawly elements, but that doesn't make Dungeons and Dragons a dungeon crawler game.
Yeah, and some people will have a hard time seeing that because, again, the style of game it is, right? When you have a game that has grids and movement and all this other kind of stuff, the difference between being in a dungeon and not in a dungeon kind of doesn't mean a lot. But at the same time, it's not, because that's not what it's about. The mechanics are kind of the same between the two styles of game, but the intent behind them are different. In a dungeon crawl like Shadowdark, for instance, where it has like mechanics for how long your torches last, because in Shadowdark your torch lasts 30 minutes in real time. So it puts a real world timer on in-game mechanics. And you're burning through torches because no characters have dark vision. So, that's a dungeon mechanic and a different style of game mechanic altogether. And in games like Shadow Dark, the whole point is the dungeon crawl. It's about going through a dungeon. But D&D has pretty much not been for a long time now really a dungeon crawl-esque game. We've been developing new styles of abilities and features that are for outside of the dungeon, When you hear about the dungeon party, you don't hear about rangers that often, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, like the dudes who are suited for outside.
So and I want to kind of observe this because I don't think there is a superior game style between, the classic adventure and the dungeon crawl. I think the dungeon crawl is fun because there's the immersive elements of going through a dungeon. And you could say that D&D can be very board gamey. And it doesn't have to be board gamey for sure. You can have lots of narrative stuff. You can have your sessions be mostly about talking and all this other kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're really looking at Dungeons and Dragons, it is about the gameplay mechanics that you could really use without the narrative elements at all. In Shadow Dark and in a lot of these other kind of games, they have a lot more of an immersive quality. Like, they're not as board gamey because, again, it's about going through the dungeon, finding the secrets, using the 10-foot pole, using the door spikes, doing all this other kind of stuff in those kind of mechanics. And it can be kind of board gamey too. Like, they have rules that can boil down the experience to a degree, but the kind of experience, especially a lot of OSR people are looking for, are kind of these more immersive, like kind of like the old text-based games, where you typed a thing in, like search or whatever, and it'd tell you what's in a room, and then you interact with the thing. Those kind of games.
That's the vibe I've always felt of those games, is they feel very like tabletop inspired, like they're trying to,
because they were inspired by tabletop.
Yeah, it's trying to port over that experience in like the first couple ways, in the same way I think that some point and click games also try to do the same thing.
But and this is kind of like where it kind of flips, right? But in the dungeon crawl experience, it's a lot less about your characters interacting and being people. And we see from a lot of these people, not everyone, obviously, but you see a lot from these people who like the OSR games, it's not really about role-playing as the character. It's about using that character as an avatar to get through the dungeon. And there's tons of people in the OSR who are like, no, I did definitely, have these story moments and do all this kind of stuff. But oftentimes when you hear their stories, they just sound like recreations from either the Lord of the Rings or some other kind of fantasy thing, like maybe something they read in Dragon's Bane or whatever.
Honestly, like the other version I've heard of a lot of the types is more of like, that didn't sound like a story, like a role play thing. It sounds like you just whatever the GM had planned, you actually just like caused to crumble and fall. You're like the proud roleplay story moment is you destroying the campaign idea. That's what I've heard more.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of I think a disingenuous take on the
experience. It is the it's not saying that every person in this field is like that, but that is a common element I keep hearing of it's a lot of the ways it feels like in the dungeon crawler audience, what I'm hearing from it is talking about the DM and player relationship is way more adversarial.
Oh no, I've definitely heard that in a lot of D&D in some ways. I mean,
it's still a trait, like, sadly, when it shouldn't.
But like, more than anything, the whole point of the dungeon crawl is that immersive, grittier, survival kind of esque experience. Like, a lot of OSR players are more like survival players than they are like adventure game players, right? They like counting ammo. they like having limited torches and everything like that, because they have to fight for every bit of gold they get in a dungeon. And I can get behind that. I think that's a fun idea. I think that's a very interesting way of playing the game, is that whole like you're delving into dungeons not for any grand reason, but because there's possibly good loot in there, and getting good loot feels really good, but also like you need to get every scrap of gold, and you have to like scrounge your torches and all this other kind of stuff together. And adventure games give you a lot more tools and a lot more abilities that circumvent a lot of this survival aspect in exchange for telling a narrative about some kind of plot, some kind of story, you know? Because when you're trying to go and defeat, you know, or go and try to throw the one ring into Mount Doom, we only hear about the characters not having food when it's the two hobbits trying to save every little bit of their lembas bread to Mount Doom, because they're not hunters, they're not stopping in cities, and they're not getting fed super often. But otherwise, we're not really hearing about every little, like, oh, how did Frodo navigate this cavern, or how did they get over this mountain pass or whatever, you know? And it's the same thing on the other side as well, like when we're following Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and eventually Gandalf when he comes back. You know, we're not going through the, oh, how are they surviving in the wilderness and doing all this kind of stuff. They're going to a place and talking to people and getting ready for war, and then they have their big battles. And then we don't even see aspects of them like getting their wounds healed and needing to rest and doing all these other kind of gritty things. Like the story just either bypasses those, time skips those, or just skips to the next part effectively. That's like important.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
It's the, like, we're not seeing how does Aragorn put his boots on every morning, and how does he tie his shoe. Like, that's why it's called shoelacing. It's the principle of you're skipping past the things you can just assume happened. And it makes sense, like, because it's the, like, as much as I am a big hater of having, like, survivalist elements in tabletop and having a lot of that gritty realism mechanics, like, I can't stand most of them because it just feels like busy work. I understand the vibe that a dungeon crawl gives, because it is very fun having that, just like, we are going through a dungeon, we're by the skin of our teeth, we're going to do this. It's the same way that it appeals to me for the
I'll be right back.
The classic D&D adventure. When you think of it, it's like the classic D&D adventure of you got your big overarching stories. You as an important group of people are going around. Maybe there's a Lich King. Maybe there's a big old dragon. Your party gets a keep in like a city you've been helping, and you have all this, like, the very emergent of like telling the character's story and the world's story. Appeals to me the same way as like the classic dungeon crawl, because it all just is a fun element. Like, granted, when I think of a modern dungeon crawl, I think of fucking Delicious in Dungeon, because I think that is a really fun idea of what if we just got in the nitty gritty of like an ecosystem of a place like this. It's just really neat, and it's a vibe that I understand and can appreciate. The only bit that gets me all the time is I don't know what's stopping you with modern games. I don't know why you can't still do that in any new game, especially a lot of games that are very OSR or very like inspired by older style tabletop. Because I know people talk some good shit about Zweihander, and I think that is in that category of like OSR game, I think. I know there's another one that people talk about a lot when it comes to it.
I'm back.
Is Zweihander an OSR type game? Am I thinking that right?
I think it is, or it's, well, I think it is an OSR game, because not all OSR. I should make mention, not all OSR games are dungeon crawls.
Yeah, but like, because my thing all the time is, I just don't know what's stopping people from still having those same exact experiences in newer games. That's always where my concern is like it's just limiting yourself to the idea that like these are stories that modern tabletop doesn't let you tell, and then it's like such a common common art like style of game and like gameplay to the point where like I mean 5th edition has an official module that's doing that. It's like I don't know, man. It seems like you still can. I don't think it's D&D that's stopping you.
Well, okay, so in some ways it is, right? Because in some ways D&D is not designed for those OSR feelings of mechanic like fidelity. They don't have the same kind of mechanics and the same kind of feel. And a lot of these people who have these OSR, preferences are unhappy because the game just doesn't feel the same. Because if it did feel the same, they wouldn't be necessarily having the same problems. It's like every race having, dark vision. There's a lot of people who hate dark vision, and they only allow it on elves and dwarves because that makes sense, which is silly, but it's
I can say dwarves because they live underground, but
yeah, well, elves just get everything because they're elves.
Yeah.
It's literally what it is. But like the thing is for a lot of these OSR games, because they are mechanically different, if you actually take a look into them, they do have a kind of a grittier, kind of a slower paced, less high action style of gameplay. And a lot of their mechanics, and this reminds me of the other video I watched. He was talking about like the BMX system, which I don't know much about. But it was a game system that uses D6s for like skill checks. And you would roll, it's based on what kind of class you are. So like picking a luck, unless you're a thief class character, is a 1 in 6, which means you need to roll a 1 on a D6 in order to succeed. Where a thief character is a 3 in 6. So they get it on 1, 2, or 3. It's a D6 roll under system.
Okay.
And the guy who was talking about it in the video was just like, yeah, I hate modifiers because when characters have a massive modifier, then failure no longer becomes an option, no longer is possible. And when he said that, I was just like, man, I don't think this guy's played any modern games, because when have I ever gotten enough of a massive modifier on a thing where I couldn't fail? Unless like I'm playing a game that has kind of brokenish mechanics or you can stack a lot of things. Like, because even in D&D, like, yeah, sure, eventually it gets to the point where the rogue, because of their goodness, what's it called? Specialization?
I think so.
Where they double their proficiency bonus. Yeah, then they get to the point where they can't like fail picking a luck anymore. But most characters don't have that. And even in the beginning of the game, rogues doubling their proficiency bonus is good, not that crazy. And he was coming up with this weird reason where just like the dungeon is unfeeling and the dungeon doesn't care. Your chance of picking that lock is the same, and the dungeon doesn't care how good you are. And it's like, I don't think you understand how this works. What a modifier represents,
Yeah, like the dungeon isn't giving me a modifier.
And it's silly because the idea is, one, he's the type of person who hates characters being good at things, it sounds like. Even though he likes the style of game where you can bypass skill checks altogether by just doing the same thing he's done in every dungeon since the 80s.
Yeah, like I just don't get it, because because you're asking for your character to be good at shit, good in the way that you can avoid rolling dice and just auto succeeding. That is your character being good at something. But like, yeah, because whenever I hear the idea of games back in my day, they're so difficult and fun, and like, I mean, was it difficult, or just was all your checks harder? Or like, was it just the GM not wanting you to succeed? Again, that's the framing of like just adversarial DM relationships. It's always the thing I go to if like my thought is like this feels like a Pavlovian GM response. Like this is your experience because this is the games you've played, and I mean there are, granted we've played with a GM who kind of hit some of these marks in my head of didn't like it if the players were good at something or succeeded in a way he didn't like.
Yeah,
That's just a
also
thing.
another quirk of this guy in his channel, he calls the GM the ref. If the ref were the referee. And I'm like, man, what a way of referring to the game master, because I understand the idea behind it, right? They're the ones who tell you whether something works or doesn't work, or tells you like when you mess up the rules or whatever. Like that's the thing, right? It's not the GM has ultimate say. It's no, the GM tells you when you're using a rule wrong. They don't get to decide whether the rule is right or wrong. They're just telling you when you do a rule wrong.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, sure, I can understand the logic behind it. Like, I don't agree. I think Game Master makes more sense of a title. Like, it's more of like a, like, sure, I get it, but there was just a better title for what you're saying.
Well, no, because the mentality is different, right? The GM isn't the one who decides the rules. They're just there to make sure you follow them.
Yeah, it's another mentality I don't like. I don't like it because I get it a lot in my comments of when it's talking to lore. Which granted, it's a lot of times people who are like, I've been playing since first or second edition.
Right.
And then they're like, I hate this change. And then they talk about it like if they ever change the lore of World of Darkness slightly, White Wolf or Paradox is going to kick their door in, guns out, and like arrest them for tabletop crime.
Right.
Is like, no, man. Like, the one that gets me is in Vampire, there's Clan Hakata, which did a big family reunion and kind of overtook and like changed up Giovanni. Because people are like, I like my Mafia vampires. And I'm like, I get that. They're still here. Clan Hakata is like 80% Mafia vampires. It says it in the book. They just have more guys now, and if you're sad that those more guys were erased, and a lot of times their complaint is the erasure is just, oh, this supplement material wasn't in the core book. Crazy. That's usually where the supplement material isn't the core book. Then the book gives you all the rules to play them, so they're not erased. You're just you just have the mentality that I can only play raw. That's the only accessible thing for me, which I've never been a fan of.
Right. And I mean, it's so interesting because the TTRPG field, I think more than a lot of other types of games and stuff of the like, is very victim to mentalities that are like, I did it this way, it was really, really fun. This is the only way I can have fun in the game anymore. And also, this is what the book says. If we're not playing it by the book, then we're doing it wrong. And these two groups intersect a lot in a lot of places where it's just like, yeah, I can't have fun with the game I like anymore because they made a new book that says the way I liked it was wrong. So now I'm just going to complain about it and wish it was back the way it was. When it's just like, it's a game of imagination. You can change it. You can change the rules.
Yeah, you just ignore it.
You can homebrew. And the crazy thing is these people also homebrew.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you can't win because it feels so contradictory and so illogical. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of people in the TTRPG field who kind of get quagmired into, I liked it when I played it this way, and now everything else is wrong or bad. And it's like, I can't understand that, and so I'm not a good person to talk about it, right? I am someone who is so unloyal when it comes to TTRPGs. I'm happy to say when I love a thing. Recently, beginning of this year, I was like, man, I think Anima, like, or like last year or a year before, I was like, yeah, I think Pathfinder's my favorite TTRPG currently. And then the beginning of this year, I was like, actually, I think it's probably Anima. Like, mechanically, there's these things. And then I discovered Legend and the Mist. I'm like, man, Legend and the Mist is now my favorite game, and it's not even close. Like,
which is super funny because I'll bring up constantly that our first time talking about Legend of the Mist, we were kind of shitting on it.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. That's the thing, right? I just said I'm so unloyal. I changed my opinion after I learned about the game. And for me, it's not about like obsession. I'm not someone who like gets a new toy and like has to deal with it most of the time. There's a lot of TTRPGs I found. I was like, oh yeah, I really like this, but I've been happy enough to like do something else, play in a different way. Legend of the Mist hit me particularly because it's just a different game altogether. It there's no we talked about this last week, but other TTRPGs to me feels like a fun board game that we can tell a story with, where Legend of the Mist is a style of game that's like we're telling a story that has mechanics as a part of the narrative, you know? Like, you can't play Legend of the Mist as a board game. It doesn't work that way. It's impossible. But you can play every other TTRPG, or at least a lot of those more number crunchy kind of TTRPGs, like a board game, no role playing required.
I mean, it reminds me of another thing that another tabletop YouTube channel we've talked about that had a crazy take of you're not telling a story with tabletop. Like it's because the whole bit of like, well, we were getting together to tell a fun like group narrative and story. It's like, well, it's not a story because it's not this arbitrary definition of what the word story means.
Oh, right, that one. Yeah.
Or which game. They're very similar.
Game or something. I can't remember.
I don't know. Their big thing was if it's not a sandbox simulation, then you're playing tabletop wrong. And every game that has been made past the 2000s is actually bad and evil because it's woke. That was their sphere.
Yeah, and also like simulationist style games. No simulationist style game doesn't make shortcuts for things that are just way too tedious. Like, you know, I don't have to make a dexterity check to load my gun in a lot of these kind of games. Even when my hands are super fucked up or whatever, you know, that's never a thing I have to worry about. Simulationism is, I hate the word simulationism, by the way. It has the whole sciencism feel to me, which just sounds idiotic. But simulation style games are just a way people feel like they can justify the gameplay and their successes and failures. And a system doesn't need to have simulation aspects in order for like everyone to feel that way. People who like simulation style things just want to feel like there's math backing up what they're doing.
Like when I was because I remember there's still a comment chain on that person's channel that I have that is like stuck with me. Because I pushed back in one bit because it was during all the Candle Obscura stuff, and it was when we like, I think that specific unnamed channel, it does it gave a good rundown of mechanically what it was, what Candle Obscura was, and then it pivots into like weird, there's only one way to play a tabletop game, like that kind of idea. And I put it in the comment of like, I mean, yeah, kudos. I think this is the only time I've watched a video kind of shitting on Candle Obscura that actually talked about what the game was.
Oh, Black Lodge Gaming,
yeah, with the unfortunate similar acronym.
Yeah,
but I pushed it. I was like, okay, so like, what is the point here of there's only one proper way to play a tabletop game? And like, I guess one of their audience members was arguing back and forth of like, yeah, it's the only way to play. And when the conversation I had there was the idea of the simulationist sandbox was purely like, it is trying to be as true to possible as this world is real and exists. So you as the players are like, we can go out and do any quest line, anything. And I was talking because like I've been in a game like that. That is how Q runs his games. His like the big importance when you're in his campaign is that the world is the world he's spent a long ass time making. And like we have plots that pop around because we say we want to go to an area. Like I was in a campaign like that for 4 years. And then I've been in campaigns where it's not the case like that. I don't think one's weaker than the other. And it's like a weird metric. I've never liked it in that way of it's just I don't like the idea of the way I play and the way I've played since I was a kid is the only way to do it. Because it's weird and frankly, it is genuine. I cannot find any other way to think of this and say this. I think it is deeply cringe to emotionally care about what another human being does with their free time, and like how they engage with like a property. I think it is immensely cringe to care. And tabletop has the most extreme of this because people are very vocal of, you're playing the game wrong, stop having fun in that way, have fun in my way.
Yeah, also I want to kind of do a little jab, maybe, I don't know, not to judge a book by its cover, but one of their more recent videos was, it's the AI moral panic is a lie, and then the thumbnail has, it's all wrong, with like AI symbols in the background. I don't know if this is pro AI or not, but if it is pro AI,
it's probably pushing against the whole like it's bad for the environment, like that argument.
I don't know. I can't say anything about it. I'm just pointing it out because I think it's funny that they would bring it up.
Yeah,
probably because they're in a crowd of people maybe who love, you know, adding AI to their TTRPG games.
Yeah, which, ew. I don't want a robot telling the story for me.
Also, not super surprised either. They talk a lot about Shadow Dark.
Yeah.
Very
all
OSR
I know
player.
is I haven't watched it because I don't care to. I know the points they're going to be making. I know that that channel has a video that is talking about like how World of Darkness has become less dark and like has failed its roots. When no, it hasn't. I'm sorry, it just straight up hasn't. Like
it, Alex, you don't understand. It's not dark unless the books can be offensive.
Yeah, that unironically, that is
exactly the argument.
It really is when I say, man, you know, I'm happy that this clan doesn't just have a racial stereotype as its bane anymore, because that just feels weird. It's like, well, I like my games dark. It's not dark. You're just saying this minority group does crime and like they have a genetic predisposition to do crime. What is dark about that? You can play a criminal of like the Romani. You can do that if you really want to, I guess. But there's a different statement when you're like, oh, by the way, this entire ethnic group, they all just do crime because they're supernaturally compelled to. And I can say that because this is making my world grimdark. No, it's just kind of cringe and like edgy. It's just dumb.
No, you don't understand. The real world has racism.
Yeah, you can do that. Doesn't mean that the racism is true.
Exactly.
That's the bit.
It's like, yeah, the real world has racism. That doesn't make the racism true, though. I hope you understand. I really hope you know this.
You're not gonna make me believe in race science, dog. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing just because it's so ridiculous. And there's just people out there who are like that, who just have to justify the things they like that are not good by saying, nah, man, this is how the real world works. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, like it's really interesting because I think you can talk about it openly. It's gonna be fun when eventually I'm gonna have to talk about the like Kindred of the Ebony Kingdom book, which is a book that's like World of Darkness in Africa, and it's a very cool book because, and like conceptually, I love a lot of the things it's doing, but also there is another form of the criticism that to levy that this is a book that is written by people who have read a lot about Africa, have not been there. We're not working with people from the region or history, or like it does a lot of like the painting the continent like a big country, which is an issue a lot of like writing has. And it's not that, oh, every single employee was actually a racist and they did it because they were racist. It's just like, I'm not going to fault people from the early 2000s of not having the appropriate resources to do it justice. Because you can, it's really hard, and it's actually just a genuine showing of how we've come as like a world. Because Pathfinder and like Paizo had the resources to do it justice with the Mwangi Expanse. Because they were able to have way more information at their fingertips and contact people. And it's awesome. And like, we gotta show the stepping stones. I think it's good for a tabletop history to show like, oh yeah, here's where we kind of missed out, but you can see the hearts there. And like, that's always important. I've had the discussion so many times of people in specifically one video, always the same one, where they're talking about how like, I'm sorry I like my horror games with proper darkness in it. And it's like, I know you are not saying this. I understand that this is a straw man of your point, but whenever you say that, it makes me think I can't have it be horror unless I use racial slurs in it.
Yeah.
That's how it sounds every time. And like, just reword your argument so it doesn't sound like you're saying that. Because I've told plenty of horror stories. I haven't said a single racial slur through them, and surprisingly, they're still scary. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing. Maybe it's a skill issue.
And I'll also say, despite his reputation, there are some stories that H.P. Lovecraft wrote that did not have racism in them.
Yeah, some he was just terrified of society. Like, my favorite one is the air conditioner horror story, which is funny. Granted, he wrote that in a year he lived in an apartment complex, and he was horrified because he lived in an apartment complex and there were different people there. Largely because he was just a huge agoraphobe.
Yeah.
Agoraphobe and like old European racist, which was less of like, I just hate like brown people. He's also like, you're not the right type of white. But also he wrote a bunch of stories that weren't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of levels to that. I don't think there was any racism in The Color from Space.
I don't think there was any in maybe there was a little bit in the Call of Cthulhu.
Yes, it was explicitly the Cult of Cthulhu was stated to be savages, which is, when you look at all of the descriptions of it, it's just not pure white people, is like the description
Right,
on
yeah.
it. Yeah,
You're right.
It's the thing that's like, it's part of it. It's the whole story is admired by it. The only one I think is mired by a lot of it is Innsmouth, because that is a really clear like racial inbreeding story.
Yes. But far from the point we've gotten.
Very far. It is purely like, it is when you take like, there are very good grognards out there. I understand people, because I think we have some in our general community, like if Bad Luck Gamer, that like OSR games but are normal.
Yeah.
Because that's the vast majority.
I've met a lot of people who like OSR, prefer OSR, but still play like D&D 5e. But a lot of times I hear these people and they're always like, it's because I can't find anyone who wants to play my game, so I play D&D instead. But, at least they don't try to make a big stink of it all the time, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
It's always bad when you're trying to play a game and someone in the party is just like, man, I wish this was another game.
Yeah, the whole time.
But
honestly, it makes me think of whenever I hear that is, that'd be a good excuse to like try to learn. Because if you're saying like, and you're in a group and you're like, man, if only it was this game, like even just passively in a good way. My thought is like, oh shit, I kind of want to see what you're talking about. Like, I think it'd be really interesting to like try to hit the vibe that you're bringing up. What if for like some one shots we tried it out? Like, that'd be fun. Or also like, it's the thing we keep bringing up of trying different games. I would love to see how like using your influence, your experience of very old games and like the way they play. I don't know, like what level of that can be implemented in like 5th edition D&D. How can we hit some of that vibe?
I don't know.
So it can be fun.
I'm not a big fan of let's just try to push everything into other TTRPGs,
No.
Try to make a hodgepodge. Sometimes it's just good that a game is a different experience than another game. And, like there's a point where, and D&D is very big victim to this, when you try to put so many things in the game that the game degrades at its base level because people are just not wanting to play your base game and just trying to add things to make it taste a little bit better to them, when there's just games out there that probably appeal to you, and
yeah, exactly.
And to be fair, like sometimes it's just a discovery thing, because Legend of the Mist was out for like a whole year before I even took a look at it. And, so for like a whole year, my favorite TTRPG currently just existed and I didn't know and didn't play it. And the whole style of TTRPG existed that I didn't know. And then I played it and I'm like, oh, fuck. This is what I was missing. All my complaints in other TTRPGs have just been solved. And that's not to say The Legend of the Mist is a perfect game, nor that it's perfect for everyone. Just for me, it just answered a lot of questions and fixed a lot of problems I had issues with, because I can tell you, it sucks trying to play another TTRPG with more dynamic style characters. Like, I want my character to do combat. I love combat, but man, give me mechanics for things that are not combat related. Let me do cool things in non-combat scenarios like conversations or crafting things or literally whatever. And let me have fun mechanics to interact with that and not just skill checks, because skill checks are kind of just boring.
Yeah. Because I'll say it's less of a like what I mean is less of a oh let's just try to emulate the old games, but more of method of play, I think, is a better way of putting it. Because it's the same direction that my first thought jumps into it. Because I've only ever, like, my experience is the newer type of adventure style game. I've just straight up never done a dungeon crawl. Like I've never had a game that felt like that. And so it'd be all right. I kind of want to hear what you're talking about, because then it's because I always want to hear the perspective of what art somebody loves, and I think that's a very valuable experience. Warping a game that's not meant to be like that into a thing that it's not is always a losing battle, and yet adding everything to 5th edition is just stupid when we can play an old game. But it would be like if our group had a turbo grognard who was chill and I liked hanging out with, I would probably take them up on an offer if they're like, hey, do you want to do like an AD&D one shot? I'd be like, yeah, fuck it, dude. I'll learn THAC0. Let's have fun.
Sure. And I mean,
I want to hear about this. Like, I want to hear about the game. Like, I want to have the vibe of the games you ran in the 80s. I want to see, like, where do we meet in the middle of like similar like taste, and where do we differ? And like, I want to feel that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I think at some point we'll definitely have to try like Shadow Dark as, you know, as a game. Though I think Shadow Dark is a lot more fun of like a in-person kind of game than an online kind of game. But, you know, you do what you got to do. There's a lot of style games, and there's so much to play. It's one of the biggest curses of being a tabletop enthusiast is tabletop takes a long time. You know, if we're considering even the short campaigns that we run to be somewhere north of 40 hours per game we try out. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time dedicated to just trying a game out. And that's just dipping your toes in. That's, in TTRPG terms, that's just dipping your toe in. That's not anywhere near even like a full experience, where in video games, you probably get a full experience of a game out of 40 hours. But in TTRPGs, you're barely... That's a pinky toe, man. That's you still got a long ways to go. And also it's hard because, you know, you want to do your own long games.
I didn't know Shadow Dark was 2d6.
Yep.
Oh. Yeah, I'm just like taking a peek at the book. And just kind of like, if we did try this, what would I play? Oh my god, the wizard gets 1d4 HP per level? That sucks, dude.
Yes. That's a D&D that's an AD&D thing, and probably first edition as well.
Damn. Also, yeah, I'm looking at it, I'm like, on my modern tabletop sensibilities, like what, 5 classes?
Right.
That's insane.
It's a very different, like, it's a game. A guy was talking to me about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not much of an OSR type person, though. And that's because I like having more narrative-based experiences, right? When games like Shadow Dark and a lot of OSR games are more of just like a classic gaming experience. Oh, yeah, it's a BX clone. Yeah. So BX is what I was talking about before with the rolling a d6 and like 1 in d6, 2 in d6. It just uses different math, but
also, like, man, you know, the one bit I'll give it is these spells are right to the fucking point.
Yeah.
Like, this is so, these spells are so like, in this range you deal this damage. It's like, thank you for just getting right to the fucking point about it. Not a whole song and dance. You're just telling me that like acid arrow does 1d6 damage to a person in range. Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Alter self. Yeah, I just alter self. All right, shit, man. Thanks.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, torches are a mechanic in this game. You have 30 minutes per torch to do things in the game. So everything, you can't deliberate too much in this kind of game. Like it's going to be it's a game to play, not because I think it's going to be one of the funner experiences we've played, or one that I think even matches our play style, but one to get that kind of vibe, get
Yeah.
that kind of like, oh, what's this kind of style game? It'd probably be one of those games I'd just be like, oh, maybe a 5-sessioner, like it depends. We'll see. We're a long ways from adding new games to the list. We still gotta play Call of Cthulhu. Still gotta get back to Anima at some point.
I know Slug wants to play Rogue Trader.
The Slug wants to do that one in person.
I would love that only because I think it'd be really funny. Or I have a fun character idea of like I want to play the Seneschal very bad.
Right.
I want to be like hit the vibe of what a Seneschal is for a Rogue Trader, which is a spy master, a very like in 40k, very not great guy.
Right.
And I want to see if I can play that the tall hawk nose, like that archetype of like Hoyd or the ruler in Discworld.
Yeah.
That type of vibe. The guy who's like very threatening, hands behind back. Because I think you can do that, and that's 40k. I love 40k, and it'd be very fun to hit those notes because it would be really easy to have a character with really high like Xenos and Chaos lore, because I IRL have very high Xenos and Chaos lore. That's a thing that a Rogue Trader needs. They need to know what they're actually dealing with.
True, and to deal with a lot of things more than your average Imperial citizen.
Oh, way more. Oh, man. Also, the Dark Heresy RPG is going to come out probably this year.
Yeah.
That's going to be hype.
Speaking on later this year, also Mistborn for the Cosmic coming out. And I am also getting really interested because they're ready to do Plot Weaver stuff, because Plot Weaver will be probably releasing next year sometime, and that's the core system behind the Cosmic RPG that's been removed from everything Sanderson so they can release their own content around it. So
hell yeah. I think that's gonna be hype.
Also, the Mistborn board game is gonna be getting its expansion, I think this year.
Yeah, I think so. Finally, too.
So,
and we're getting a fucking Stormlight war game.
Yeah. So lots of fun games, lots of games to try, and I guess this conversation has kind of turned more towards like grognards versus modern rather than dungeon crawl versus classic adventure. But the main point is the game styles offer different things. They offer different experiences, and it's completely okay to prefer how one game has done it over another. I'm someone who loves Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World, I think, is probably still, to this day, my favorite Monster Hunter game. And I love Wilds. I loved Sunbreak. Played a lot of both. I need to play more Wilds. I need to do the Gogmazias fight. But I really miss how in Monster Hunter World, you had to actually track the monster down. It was a lot more of a process. And in addition to that, I miss the invading monsters that would interrupt your fight in the middle of it. They've kind of cleaned a lot of that stuff up to kind of make it less obtrusive. And honestly, like, I liked the obtuseness of it. I liked needing to find the monster and where they were. It was really, really cool. And it's okay. But it would be wrong of me to be like, yeah, Wilds is a bad game. Because it's not. It's a good game.
It's just the annoying. It's an annoying perspective. It's like a large point of this stream, I think, is just if you're in that position, if you're in a position of like, man, they just don't do it like they did it when I was young, when I got into the hobby, or like whatever. I think you need to take a look and try to figure out, is it truly the fact that every single thing that has come out is bad? Or is there a reason that you just can't get behind a lot of it? It's the example we had from the channel at the beginning we were chatting about. I just don't believe that there hasn't been a game inspired by the 80s or whatever, by that era, that hits the same notes and can appeal in the same way. Just because it's a newer game, I don't see it.
Yeah. And like that's the thing, right? Is I can understand being upset that the game style, the game, the kind of game you like isn't being developed as much, or isn't as available as it once was. That's totally fine. I totally get that. It's one of those things where they are creating iterations, are oftentimes creating a style of thing for a different method altogether, right? Like sometimes iteration, developing a new thing, a new edition, a new whatever, is not to do the old version but better, but instead to do something that the old version didn't do. But that often means making something that's just kind of a whole new experience altogether. Like the classic adventure, we talked about this earlier, is not a story about every small step. A dungeon crawl is every corridor matters. A adventure is not every day of travel matters. We talk about the ones that do, because that's what a story is really about, is the points of interest. When something is happening in the scene that's actually interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two incredibly different types of experiences. As well, the dungeon crawl is about trying to be effectively a salvager. That is what you're doing in a dungeon crawl. Like, sure, you're crawling down the dungeon and expecting to fight someone, but at the end of the day, you're going into the dungeon to get the loot. That's your main reason. The fighting things part, while that's fun, is technically just a thing that is getting in your way of getting the loot. And so you fight because that's what you need to do. Maybe looting the monsters is also a big aspect to it, but still, like at the end of the day, you're just scavenging. You're just trying to get things so that your character can have more. But when we're talking about the adventure, we're not talking about the Fellowship fighting monsters to get experience or to get stronger or anything like that. They had a job to do. And so everything leading from beginning to end was about getting to that conclusion. And the story is the journey along the way, because at the end of the day, Lord of the Rings isn't about destroying the ring. It's about everything that led up to the destruction of the ring. And so we tell the interesting stories about the interactions, about the characters, and all this other kind of stuff. Like, if I'm going to be honest, me personally, I want my TTRPG to be an experience where I feel like a person in the world and I'm doing things. I don't necessarily need to have a main goal in mind, but I would like to have some kind of goal to pursue. Something I want to find, something I want to do, something I want to beat, some way of progression, some way of getting to the next part. If there's a main story at the end of it, sure. But I also am not the person who has really had the experience as a player of having a BBEG at the end of the game. I just really haven't had that. Where I've run games that do have some BBEGs, like we call it the Astrid campaign, but it was our when you guys were going up against the Unraveler.
Yeah.
And what made that campaign good was not dealing with the Unraveler, or even really necessarily dealing with what the Unraveler did. It was about all the interesting things you guys did along the way until we eventually got to the point where you guys could fight the Unraveler.
Yeah,
and
there was a
honestly,
lot of it was also just like, I mean, you if you want to get players to get into something, a really nice way of doing it is creating personal beef.
right, sure. And I'm not saying BBGs are bad. I'm just saying, like, for me, as
Yeah.
what I want in games doesn't have to have that beef.
Oh yeah.
Want to go through the experience of a character going from zero to hero, however that comes about, and being able to do different things. I like games where I can be a smart schemer type character just as much as I like games where I'm just a guy who has to eventually fight a dragon, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is interesting. But And dungeon crawls are kind of like that. Dungeon crawls don't really have BBEGs. They can for sure, but they don't have to have them, because the reason why you're playing the game is the dungeon crawl. And the adventure almost typically has to have a BBEG, or it has to have some overarching plot, some cataclysm you have to prevent, you know, something that needs to be done, otherwise it's going to be bad. Or something that needs to be done because your character has like that story, that personal vendetta, or whatever, you know, like something where your character will never be able to rest peacefully until they do a thing.
Yeah, I like it, it's fun because I at some point in the future maybe I'll do actual games with it, but it's kind of how I structure my own little home setting. I've just been tinkering away constantly at my idea of if I was going to run World of Darkness games, that are going to be set in Washington around Seattle. Like, what is around Seattle? And the way I format a lot of it is like I function a lot in very like One Piece arc system, because I it's kind of a way that we like ran a bunch of our games before. It's what literally my tabletop start really was. And I just really like the story like setup. I think there's a lot of really fun narrative tools you get when you function your shit like a One Piece arc. There might be some overarching concepts and things going on, but largely when you're in a storyline, that storyline, it has a start and an end, and like there's a thing that the storyline is dealing with.
Yeah.
Because I have some ideas for like how I'd run that for Vampire. Because I know a big story I would do is in my Seattle World of Darkness. It is not taking into account Bloodlines 2, but it's there's been a lot of effort in Seattle to really control how much supernatural bullshit is going on by the Prince of Seattle, trying to like limit new creatures and new vampires and such coming in, because the Sabbat presence has been moving around Oregon and California as part of the lore. And so you'd be playing a sheriff game where you're taking care of a lot of supernatural threats. I know one of them would be because I just like the idea of like a berserker style drug, like episode 1 of Cowboy Bebop, where there is a vampire plague, which is a blood plague that's going on that is being sold as a narcotic to people. That turns you into like a berserker, fucking frenzying for vampire vitae. Because that is just a fun, like, oh shit, how do you deal with that as a vampire, where you could just get ambushed by a guy in an alleyway. Then also, like, there is an overarching BBEG in that, but, like, are you going to feel his presence constantly? No. Which, fun bit, it is a syndicate mage of a technocracy who runs an internet service provider, so the main villain is Spectrum, or Comcast, whichever one you hate more. Because that's the true villain, guys. It's Comcast and Spectrum. But like that is a way I think you can arc it. But a lot of times when I think of the traditional BBEG, it's the Lich King coming back or whatever.
Right.
It's the big dragon trying to take everything over. A lot of times it's a Lich, which to be fair, I think a good Lich is proper spooky. Like that's fun. You want a villain with at least a little bit of like spookiness to him. Because you want that threat. You want the thing that feels threatening for the players, like in the early game. Because then it also feels really good once they're at the point they can actually stand their ground. Because then it's just like, all right, buddy. All right, it's personal now. You've been kicking us around. Now it's our turn. Just fun. That is also true. In Shadowrun, you can just make him a dragon. So that's 2 birds with 1 stone. I also just got an idea, like, from... Because Adeptus Ridiculous is a side podcast, and they've been talking about WoD. I'm in their Discord. But someone pointed out that you can make a really fun Pentex, like, Werewolf the Apocalypse antagonist, instead of having it be, like, some boring corpo suit. Why don't you just make it Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising? I'm like, I really like that, actually. So yeah, like, it depends how you format it, and there's strengths and weaknesses, but, like, having a BBEG is not the end-all be-all. And it is the only way I can think you have that for the traditional dungeon crawl is if you're playing this type of story of the dungeon crawl as like one giant dungeon, like a very like Delicious in Dungeon, which I referenced earlier. That's just where my head goes whenever I think of a dungeon crawl. Is like I think of a story like that where there's a big old like one imposing dungeon.
Yeah. So, like, at the end of the day, right, they're different experiences, and they're going to have points where they intersect and points where they kind of veer around each other. We talked about it at the beginning of the stream where, like, in dungeon crawls, it's more about how smart the player is and how they get around traps and stuff like that, where the more adventure game, well, that sure can come up at sometimes. Mostly it's like, how smart is my character? What do they know? What can they do in this scenario? And so complaining that, like, modern D&D, modern TTRPGs has a skill for getting past traps when a player could just use a 10-foot pole is kind of silly, because in modern games, the idea is you're playing a whole nother person with different experiences and not meta knowledge. And in the dungeon crawl, while it's expected that your character or that you as the player, like, knows information about getting through dungeons and all that other kind of stuff like that, it's just a different thing. You're not playing the same game at the end of the day. There's many different TTRPGs. It's not even just the dungeon crawl versus the classic adventure. There are other types of games of TTRPG that don't fit into either of these. I mean, Lancer is a good example. It is not necessarily the classic adventure. It can be. You can have an overarching story where your pilots go from zero to hero, but more often than not, Lancer more leans itself into the sortie style, like, mission-based game where, sure, maybe it will climax into a bigger narrative, but, like, you exist in such a massive space where it can't be world-ending, quote-unquote, universe-ending, because that just, a power of that level does not exist.
Yeah, it's still, like, it's just a type of game I'd love to try with, like, someone who's, like, really, really into that type of game and genre.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of the difference of us playing, like, Shadow Dark. Would be sick as hell. I think it'd be really fun. But I view it in the same way of having that older style game experience is the same way of, like, playing Anima with a person who's obsessed with Anima hits different.
Sure.
You can have some of the same experiences, but it's the artsy part of me that's like, I want to experience the art you love. So, right. Like, I'm always like, like, this type of, like, very different tabletop game. Fuck yeah, dude. I might not vibe with it by the end of what we do. That might be a walkaway we have of, like, playing Shadow Dark, because I do want to try that with this group. We might just be like, this system isn't really for us. So I feel like I'm not going to be the only person saying, shit, like, 5 classes?
Right.
And, like, I look at some of it and I'm like, Wizard could be fun, but, like, man, this is very, like, D&D Wizard. Where's my feats? Where's my abilities? I just get 1d4 health and spells. That's it. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
playing a game, and playing, like, a tabletop game from the experience of a person who is obsessed and, like, loves their type of game. I just always love that. And it's my own thing of I speak from luxury of having a group that meets, like, mostly regularly.
Yeah.
Most people don't even have that, so. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, in the TTRPG field, there's always someone willing to run a game, one they're passionate about.
True.
Just out there.
I love that I can say that, but I also know full-heartedly, I'm like, I'm not going to join a fucking game, like, right, from a stranger. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And it's something that makes it hard. I'm someone who kind of prides himself on being able to, like, get why most games are fun. You know, get why someone would like Shadow Dark and really get into the experience, because I've played similar kind of games like that. I've played AD&D before,
Yeah.
and I played board games that are very much the dungeon crawl experience. Not quite the same, because again, there's not that immersive, like, oh, can I check for loose tiles, all this kind of stuff, all that blah blah blah. But they have a lot of the same kind of mechanics derived from the dungeon crawl games, just made in a board game, so you don't need to have a GM. And
Yeah, there's a few like really cool dungeon crawl board games I know about uh that were also trying to hit that style.
yeah, and like at the end of the day, I believe tabletop is a thing that you should value your time in. You should play the games that you want to play, have the experiences that you want to have, because they do take a lot of time, they do take a lot of commitment, and I can't even say how many games I've run that have not completed because you just, it fell off. It fell off for someone, or it fell off for some people, and that's okay. And I always advocate for have the best experience you can have the most fun you can have with a session, because that's how it is. And so when these people are upset about modern games, they're upset because it's not their game.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't play the way they think it does. It does things they think are wrong, and it's just not their game. And they're upset that other people can't see why their game is good. They're like, I don't understand. Like, that's a big thing. They're a lot of these grognard type people are just like, if I could just show a modern player how to play the game right, they would see that the way we play is actually better.
It's that mentality is never gonna work. Like, because it's if you're approaching it of the I'm doing this to win the argument, instead of like, hey, I want to share with you a thing I care about. Hello, it's me, your friend, who you also care about. Like, what are we doing here, man?
For them, it's a competition, right? Because the more people that would like their game instead, maybe the more stuff they get. So in some ways, it's a real competition, because that's true. If a lot of people really, really like the OSR games, more OSR games will get made. But it's silly, because it's implying that TTRPG is an experience that you can objectively do correctly and enjoy correctly, and also is universal in design and performance, which is not the case. Because again, and why I wanted to talk about the dungeon crawl versus the classic adventure, a lot of these grognard people still love the classic adventure. They still love doing that thing, and I guarantee played those sessions, those games differently than their dungeon crawl. Maybe they still had some of their dungeon crawl things, like maybe they went into a dungeon in their adventure and boom, now we're back into dungeon crawl mode, right? But there's a lot of things these games don't do because the experience isn't the same. We're not going through every deer path and every trail through the, when we're crossing the country. We're not trying to like stop enemies from attacking us by blocking doors or anything. You can't really do that kind of stuff. You have to make some sacrifices when you do adventure style in comparison to crawler style. And it's just something that I just wish people understood. I wish people understood that there's games that just offer different experiences. Even the classic adventure versus, I would say, the modern adventure. Because the modern adventure is different than the classic adventure. Modern games and modern adventures are typically higher scale in a lot of ways, because we have characters who can just do more than you could do before. Back in the old day, the fighter was just a guy with a sword and shield. There wasn't like abilities. They didn't have anything unique or not a lot of magic abilities. They are magic-like abilities, like magic weapons or anything that they could use to get through certain scenarios. They're just a guy with bravery, courage, and grit, and that's how they get through their scenarios. But nowadays, like, fighters are way stronger, way more capable than they used to be,
Yeah,
and
fucking
magic
like
has only gotten crazier.
maneuvers, crazy weapons that they get. Like it's a whole smorgasbord of options.
You know, and there was different expectations with the more classic adventures compared to how adventures are coming out now. And I mean, even with the explosion of people and the kind of casual audience that it has gained, which is not a great way to put it, but it's the only way I can put it. The people who are willing to play this game a bit, or willing to play this game, but at a very surface level without too much immersion. They're just there to beer and pretzels, their tabletop session. And so a lot of it is just about being weird little guys doing funny little things.
Funnily enough, it's basically like my family. There was my sister has been trying to get a sibling and just see, like, my fiance and I, and then just siblings, we go and like hang out somewhere, like just us, no parents. And one of the things they've asked me to do when that happens is they want me to run a tabletop thing. They want me to run a D&D game. And my sister first told me it, I made a face because I heard D&D. Mm-hmm. And so, it's automatic. I can't help it. And so they were like, "What, you don't like the idea?" I'm like, "No, I like it. It's just, sorry, I had a gut reaction to the word Dungeons and Dragons."
Right.
And then my sister was like, "Well, we can play a different game." And I'm like, "No, not really. No, we can't. Because that's not what this audience is. Like, I can't be like," at the time, the only other game I had was like, I don't know, fucking Pathfinder. I'm not going to sit them down to learn Pathfinder. That's not what this is. That's not the experience they're actually asking for. They're asking for a beer and pretzels game because I know my siblings have engaged with tabletop on a very like surface level, casual like element. My brothers told me of the funny little guy characters he's played, and that's totally chill. And then the other aspect, I've commiserated my brother because him and his boyfriend, like they were played a Pathfinder 1E game, and then told me about it and how fucking awful it was because the GM sucked. And the GM was like a hyper restrictive, you're not allowed to play these things, you can't do this, you can only play this specific way. And not even like they were trying to act out, but basically it was, can we have any agency in the world and story? And it's basically no. And then also from what I was just told, it doesn't seem like the guy who says how much he loves Pathfinder 1E and how much of good of a game it is, it didn't sound like he had a great understanding of what Pathfinder was.
Right.
But and that's the bit where they tell me stories of them playing the game, and I'm like, guys, you'd like it so much better if your GM was good, which is why they want me to do it, because I actually know how to, I wouldn't say I'm a good GM. I don't like doing it. I can at least make a fun environment, and that's just an important aspect of it.
And I mean, unfortunately, that's just like one of the key anchors of a TTRPG experience. You got to have a good GM. Like, it's such a thing that I have a hard time imagining. I've had some bad DMs, don't get me wrong, but I love being a GM, and I'm a good GM. And I just commented on the chip to ship.
Oh, that's sick.
Well, I think, is it for Pathfinder or Starfinder?
I mean, it could be both.
I mean, technically it's both, but
you put one in water and you put the other in space.
Oh, that's true. It could also be in water. I was thinking just Starfinder.
I mean, like
Pathfinder 2.
Yeah, like you have ship combat. I mean, like it's all naval.
No, yeah, it's all Pathfinder. Huh. Yeah, I saw ship to ship and I was like, yes, Starfinder.
That is
sick. That's cool too.
Honestly, means we can do a cool pirate adventure. Again.
True, again. But but yeah, I've always run games well. I've just always had a talent for it. And so I get these players, and my players don't have necessarily that much bad experience with TTRPGs because I've been their GM for most of their games that they've ever played in. You know, like I know Slug and Booter have played with some other people a little bit before they joined us, and that did ruin their experience a little bit, but they've changed so much since then, molded them to our style of game. But like
True.
when I was growing up, I was always the one who was running the game. So like everyone around me always just had my game experience as their game experience. So
Yeah, no, like that's I have the same thing. Cause like I have the lucky bit of I have just only good experiences with like a handful of little shakeups, which are the just very casual experiences I've had in like high school and Adventure League stuff and like things like that, where I've seen examples of just not how to not do it. And it just depends like what type of game you're going for. And then like I have those in my head, and I'm like, yeah, like a lot of that was you can pin it on pretty understandable things, older tabletop stylings that like also just a person who's kind of an asshole, young people who are like, I just want a level really hard level of control, and like this bit of ego in it. Check out my cool OC that we're all gonna fight, that kind of thing. And then I hear other stories, and I'm like, fucking how like it's hard for me to comprehend it. Like the stories my brother and my sister have told me, where I'm just like, what the fuck kind of GMs do you have? Like it's stories where I'm like, I don't think they understand how a tabletop game works. It's that much. It's just that thing of I have to sit here with like my lobster's too buttery and my steak is too juicy. Like I don't know, man. I've only had good experiences in like many years of play because I haven't played with anyone else.
yeah, actually, funny to think about. We are coming up on in a few years, but almost a decade of you playing TTRPGs with us.
That's crazy. It already hit when I saw our Discord like friend anniversary. I was like, Jesus Christ, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
but yeah, I think it's fascinating, and I think these games offer different types of experiences, and I think that trying to put yourself in one mindset, you know, I want to run this kind of style game, let me use my favorite system, is not really a good way of doing it at the end of the day. Because don't get me wrong, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with like having a system of preference or anything like that. As of right now, as I said, I'm unloyal, so you know that things are always subject to change. Love Legend in the Mist, but I don't think I could ever run Legend in the Mist as a dungeon crawl. I just can't. It's just not going to be that kind of game. Just like I
just
can't.
don't think it would work.
Well, you could do it, but the thing is, it would be much more of the narrative style and a lot less of the mechanic effects, because the mechanics would just be different of going through the experience. You could do it. You can have dungeons in Legend of the Mist, obviously, but you know, there's not just the same level of mechanics. There's not the like, you don't have lots of items in Legend of the Mist, for instance, so you don't get that same feel.
It's more like it's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy maybe, but it's not even like Legend of the Mist can't do this one thing or anything. But in my head, it's more like the kind of like, if we're trying to play for whatever reason, like, guys, let's do a dungeon crawler campaign of Legend of the Mist, and playing it, I feel like my takeaway would be, what the fuck are we doing? Because it would it's like, oh man, I gotta play a dungeon crawl with none of the upsides of a dungeon crawl game, because it's not built for that. And so it'd be like, oh man, I love my dungeon crawl without normal XP, with loot gain, with like all the traditional hallmarks of a dungeon crawl tabletop game. And then it's just also all of the strengths of the campaign are everything a dungeon crawl is trying not to be. So it's like, okay, what are we doing?
Exactly. Just the same way, I can't use Legend of the Mist to really get the same experience as playing Lancer, because Lancer, at the end of the day, is just a very fun space tactics mech game, and And the thing about it is, it's fun in Lancer to choose from the mechs and mix and match parts together. In Legend of the Mist, you can't have mixing and matching parts together because you just make up your tags. There's no predetermined tags for you to select from. You could do that. That'd be a lot of work. You might as well just play Lancer at that point. So,
Yeah,
you know,
you're doing a lot of steps to not play Lancer when you could just play Lancer.
like I said, it's my favorite game, currently speaking. There's a lot of game experiences I've had fun with, like Lancer, that just, it doesn't work for. And I wouldn't do it that way. Legend of the Mist, in fact, I don't even think Legend of the Mist is as universal as it might seem, because the Beast Tamer game that we're playing is technically homebrew, because we've pre-made some things, you know, we have different themes, and some of the mechanics just work differently than how they're written in the game, you know. I look forward to more games that are like Legend in the Mist, that have that same method of like getting your getting your roles put on paper and all that other kind of stuff. Maybe something with a little bit more structure than Legend in the Mist, because there are some points where it's easy to fall through the cracks. But there's also a lot of games that I just don't think would be as fun as they are in Legend in the Mist. And there's also just some aspects of other games that are fun because they are their own thing. I love Deadlands. Deadlands is a really fun game, and I know Savage Worlds does a lot of different style of games, but it'll be hard for me to match the same experiences I had with the original Deadlands, especially in a different style of game, like say Legend of Mist, for instance, because some of the fun parts of Deadlands is I love games where I upgrade dice. You know, I love
It's so sick.
Let me upgrade my dice, or let me add a die, because you roll multiple dice and you take the highest result. So, you know, like that mechanic only works in a game where you have dice and stuff like that. And wound thresholds. I love wounds thresholds. I love that mechanic, because I actually prefer it to normal HP, because I feel like it's something that makes a bit more sense of like, oh, my character is harder to hurt, so my wound threshold is higher, and so I can take the same attack as someone else and get less injured from it overall, which I think is interesting. Also, a mechanic that can't work in Legend of the Mist, you know? So it's... And I'm only using Legend of the Mist not because I'm obsessed, but because it's my favorite game, and that's what I'm using as a point of reference, right? Because
I think even more than just a point of reference, it is a good game to point at, with the idea of, like, with D&D, our big criticism is that forcing D&D to do not D&D things by making every game this is not a good thing.
Right.
You should just play different games. And then you have a system that, genuinely speaking, you can tell a massive amount of stories and settings in.
Yeah.
So it's a good comparison of like, this game could do that, but then pointing out all the reasons you still shouldn't do that.
Yeah. And, you know, because there's some level of games, and there's some games out there that have genuinely fun mechanics to play with. Dice mechanics, all those kind of mechanics. And like, I think Legend in the Mist is a game for me that can replace games like Pathfinder or like D&D, because at the end of the day, their funnest mechanics are literally just like what a spell does, or what a feat pick you could do does. And like the skill roll system is just not very entertaining to me anymore at the very least. And the tactic aspects are fine, but honestly, they're not that good when you compare them to games that are more dynamic with their tactics. Like Pathfinder is a very fun game. Don't get me wrong; it's a very fun game. It's a very tactical game. But when I compare like Pathfinder combat to say like Lancer combat, I think the tactic level of Lancer just is higher than in Pathfinder.
Mainly because like Lancer takes a lot of inspiration from war games.
Yeah,
and war games are just good at that. Like, because I love Legend of the Mist too. Like, I think it's a really good game. But like, it's why whenever I talk about like the World of Darkness game I want to do at some point, like even playing in the other systems, like I don't think Legend of the Mist can hit the same feeling like playing Vampire the Masquerade is. But that's because like Vampire as a game works because the tone is impacted by kind of how brutal the dice system is. Like the idea that you can crit too good being a bad thing is an
Yeah.
element that is a thing where it's like, man, this kind of sucks. Like this doesn't feel as good. And that is just the tone. That's the tone of the setting, because the entire game is that fall, and I do not think any WoD game is going to have a perfect happy ending. Like it just can't, because that's not the setting.
Right.
And that, like, the actual setting and the lore is impacted really well by the game's rules. And at most, you could probably make a fun ass vampire, but I think the weakness system is cool. I love how the weakness system works in Legend of the Mist. I think WoD makes it a little bit more punishing.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't just it forces your character to alter how they role play in a moment, and possibly like cause issues for themselves instead of just you get a -1. Or like you can impose a status, but still, it's like the difference of I think there's a bit more brutal mechanics with weaknesses comparatively, because the tones of the game are just different in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, how I would put it is you could tell a BTM story in Legend in the Mist. I think it'd be just fine. You could do a lot of the same kind of systems and everything like that.
Yeah.
But the mechanics and some of the things you have to worry about, like humanity, for instance. Humanity is it wouldn't be a status, nor would it be a tag or a condition, you know. It's this other scale, this other thing that you'd have to homebrew into the game in order to recreate, for instance.
Which I'd struggle to even think of a way to do it other than just keep it, like, wholesale ripping the humanity system from BTM. Because it is just too core to what a vampire is.
Yeah, and there's also the choices, like the auspexes and all those kind of things. The aspects, or whatever they're called.
Disciplines.
Disciplines, there we go.
Aspects is just one of them.
Yeah. There's some game that calls things like that aspects, but
yeah. To be fair, aspects is also like the most common one, I think.
Because like the fun part about Vampire the Masquerade is the massive lore that's already there and all the fun stuff that you get to interact with. And you don't get that in Legend in the Mists because that's just not the system it was made for originally. And so, you know, you can't get the same experience. I think you could still tell a very good vampire style World of Darkness in Legend in the Mists. Don't get me wrong. I think it's still very capable, very viable. It's just not the same at the end of the day. And it's okay to have a preference for those two styles, you know, wanting the true as designed for style of Vampire the Masquerade, or the preference in system style. And
it's that difference of I think it's a much better thing than trying to play a dungeon crawl Legend in this game, because my immediate thought isn't a what the fuck are we doing here like thing, because it's Legend in the Mist is like, okay, yeah, this can work, because, you know, there's they're both games are meant to play more narratively, and I think the tag system in general would work really well for a game like Vampire.
Yeah,
that's the big point of it, is having trying to make this person in the world, because that's really how the game thrives, is when you make a person who is suddenly become a vampire, or has been a vampire for a while, or has become like awakened to become a mage. But like it's just the aspects of like the actual game, the dice system, the mechanics help impose tone and help impose the setting in the game you're playing. And it's just that endless thing we'll constantly be pointing at, of no matter how good your game is, no matter how genuinely like versatile your game is, still keep yourself open to other experiences.
Yeah,
don't lock yourself out in the way of a lot of the person we were making fun of at the beginning, who is the games have not gotten good since the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, like I said, Legend of Mist I think is really good, very flexible, plays a way I like the best so far. But there's going to be days that I'm just going to want to play a more number crunchy kind of game, want to play with interesting mechanics. You know, I would love to play Deadlands again.
I would love
Because
to play Deadlands, period.
yeah, one of our friends wants to play Scion. Scion's a lot of fun too. Same story path engine as World of
Yeah, because
Darkness.
that's Chronicles. I have heard nothing but good things about Scion.
It's good.
Even in my comment section, like I get people that are begging me to do Chronicles, and it's like I just don't know Chronicles. I've never played any of them. I have no experience with it. Like my first encounter with World of Darkness was the first Vampire the Masquerade video game. Like that was it. But like I've heard nothing but Scion is dope.
Yeah, most of my high school experience with TTRPGs was on Scion. So
it seems cool. I from the very loose look I took of the wiki page on the White Wolf wiki, it seems like a neat concept.
yeah. But that's going to be us for today. We didn't really talk too much about dungeon crawls versus the classic adventure, but I think the theme was more or less on point. It's just your games, these style of games are different. They have crossovers in some key areas, but the overall experience that you're going to get out of it are just going to inherently be different in systemically rather. You're going to not be able to have the same crossover that you want if you try to go from one to the other. And there are other style games as well. It's important to keep your mind open. Play games. Enjoy games for what they are. Don't try to shoehorn every game into your nostalgia trip of one game you played that was really, really fun. You know? Because I mean, it's not bad to like want to have those experiences again, but trying to force everything to be that experience is kind of sad.
Yeah, it's why I've just reinforced that one idea of just if that is the position you find yourself in, I think you will do yourself a lot better by earnestly thinking and reflecting on like what part do you want to get back? Is it actually just the type of game? Is it like the table, or is it just like where you were when you played it?
Yeah, sometimes
that hits. Sometimes it's just you miss the high school or middle school group you had. That's super fair to wish you had that again. But if it's only gonna hit you with you mauling about kids these days don't know how to play good tabletop, I don't know. You can re-hit some of those themes. I think you just need to be open for different experiences.
Yeah. But before we head out today, Alex, anything you want to leave us off with?
Yeah. Well, I've been kind of saying throughout this stream, I cover World of Darkness largely. I just haven't strayed away from it. I don't want to call myself a WOD tuber, but literally, I don't think I have a choice in the matter.
I was thinking about this earlier. You really should just look. You should just be the weird TTRPG lore guy. You should just find weird lore games and talk about those.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like Morkborg.
I agree, because don't get me wrong, I completely agree. The problem is, sitting down to write a script on something I'm not obsessed with is hard. I have a Warframe script that I haven't finished, and it's because I love Warframe lore. I'm just not as crazy about it as it comes to World of Darkness. That's all it is. It's why I've fallen away from 40k. I love 40k stuff. I'm not as obsessed with the lore as I am now, largely because I find the entire internet community for it really fucking annoying, and I don't want to engage with it because I just don't want to deal with it. And there's just better YouTubers out there that cover 40k, and unless I'm treading new ground, I don't care. WOD I can take. My new goal is to cover Demon the Fallen before Burger Creek does, because everyone's begging him to cover Demon. He did a fake out with an April Fool's video, and so now there's a market for Demon the Fallen, so I gotta hit it. But yeah, I want to do that. I want to find weird tabletop games and cover the lore of it. I think I just need, if I get a bigger audience for it, that's watching everything and not just searching WOD, I'm gonna do that. That's a fun pivot. But yeah, I cover largely WOD stuff. I put out a video today on the Society of Ether, steampunk mages. Or also, do you just want to cosplay as Edward Elric in Mage the Ascension? You play a Society of Ether mage. That's how you do it. So go to my channel, Glue Boy, and you can go watch that.
As for me, I am still a little bit ways from making content again. I want to. It's been there in my heart for a while, growing every day, that desire. I mostly just want to talk about Legend of the Mist, though. I just, I feel like more people need to look into this kind of game, because now here I become the grognard, right? I want more people to like my style of game, so more versions of it come out. But I really do think there's something very unique about the Mist engine and what it provides. And while I'm not necessarily quite so into the rustic fantasy stuff, don't get me wrong, it's really cool. The art in the books is amazing. And I do think that there is a version of that game that I would really like to try out and play. I just really like the Mist engine. I think it's really cool. So I'll be making videos on, talking philosophy about it and talking about the game in general, my opinions. And then I'll probably do some shorts. I think I'll do some shorts on like some builds for Legend of the Mist, because it'd be so easy to do. And I literally watch shorts on people like making their Legend in the Mist builds and telling like the mechanics they use and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot. If you want to see Legend in the Mists, check out the live tab on the channel, because we've been playing it for the last few live streams that we do for our weekly game. And currently, we are playing a Monster Tamer version, and last session was actually really cool, even though it was mostly all just one-on-one Pokemon-style battles. How the battles came about and what happened and the story that's kind of forming around them has been surprisingly really cool. So if you want to check it out there. Other than that, just waiting to get myself a little bit more free time so that I can make content without adding in a lot of extra stress in my life. I have a lot of stress already. I have a little girl. She is wonderful. I love her so much, but she is a spitfire and stubborn, and she loves climbing a lot. And that's terrifying with a 15-month-old. So
If it carries on, you just gotta see if it continues and she just gets into rock climbing.
I bet she would. She's a straight climber. She's been climbing ever since she could walk. And her favorite thing now, to show you guys a glimpse of my stress, her favorite thing now is standing on top of our couches, which she's always done before. But now she likes to let go of the wall and just walk on the top of the couch and fall onto the couch. And she loves falling onto the couch.
I can't blame her. That is fun.
But it's terrifying because she doesn't have the best balance. She could always fall the wrong way at any point. She also loves, when mom or dad are nearby, jumping onto them trust fall style without warning.
God. Yeah, there's a parent TikTok channel I keep getting, and a big one he talks about is just there is a real strength in letting your kid engage in like unsafe play. But the big kicker is just like slap a helmet on them if they're anywhere that could be like mainly outside. If they're gonna be climbing around outside doing some shit, just slap a helmet on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be sick if honestly, just a weird sport sometimes just works out great.
Yeah.
I wish if I got shown some cool ass sport that wasn't just soccer or basketball, maybe I'd play sports.
But that's gonna be it for us. That's gonna be it for us for now. We'll be seeing you next time. So I guess we'll go ahead and say goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.